It might sound hyperbolic, but this is one of the harder comparisons I've had to make in recent memory. The iPad Pro was recently updated, and despite my initial irritation with the larger model, after swapping the big one for the 11-inch Pro, this has quickly found a permanent spot in my student bag. Yes, I'm 40, and I have started going to college again. The Samsung Galaxy Tab S9, on the other hand, is probably the best hybrid computer/tablet device ever made. It's not cheap, but I do think it's well priced for what you get, and its biggest circus trick is with a few quick taps, it moves from tablet to Chromebook-esque mode, and that's actually pretty useful. Now, one quick note up, let me get this cable out of the way. One quick note up front, neither of these companies are sponsoring this video. Nobody gave me either of these tablets. I purchased them on my own with my own money. Now, that's not to say, just because of that, that's not to say this video is unbiased. I'm a person, and as a person, we all have inherent biases built in, so I guess be ready for that. If I were to summarize this video up front, the iPad Pro is the better tablet, while the Galaxy Tab S9 is the better overall device. I'm not sure. I get it. That might not make much sense, but I'm going to spend the next, I don't know, however many minutes trying to explain and back up that statement. How much does it cost to get either of these up and running in a way that a student or office worker would need? Why are those the only two things? Well, because those are the only two things that I really do, and so I try to use my expertise to make these videos. The brand new iPad Pro comes at a base model price of $999. For that money, you'll get the latest M4 processor, which as of the release of this video, hasn't even been made available on MacBooks yet. You get a beautiful display, 256 gigabytes of storage, and 8 gigabytes of RAM. You can upgrade the internals to 16 gigabytes of RAM if you buy a 1 terabyte or above model, which is kind of shady, but Samsung does the same thing, so whatever, I guess. The Tab S9, on the other hand, comes in at a base model price of $919. It has been out for a while and frequently goes on sale, like when I researched this video. So when we did this, when I checked, it was down to $719 for the upgraded 256 gigabytes of storage, 12 gigabytes of RAM model. That sale price might not hold up forever, so I'm going to stick with $919, 128 gigabytes, and 8 gigabytes of RAM baseline for comparison today. So both devices come in at roughly the same price if you buy just the tablet. But that's not where students or office workers or even promotional material leave it, right? The tablet by itself, yeah, you can watch movies, you can scroll through YouTube, stuff like that, but it doesn't really do much useful in a productivity sense. We'll say for the bare minimum functionality, you need a stylus and some kind of keyboard case. For the Samsung, you get the S Pen included in the price of the tablet. You buy the Tab S9, well, hey, you get the stylus too. Whew. That was pretty easy. For the keyboard case, I'm going to be kind of strict about these because I refuse to buy or recommend cases that aren't freestanding. That means like, can you sit it in your lap? No? Well, then I'm not going to recommend it. And that kind of sets these two devices at different ends for prices because the Samsung freestanding keyboard is the cheaper option. But on the other hand, over here in Apple world, the freestanding model is the more expensive Magic model. The Samsung needs an additional $140 to get the Tab S9 book cover, and the iPad Pro needs $300 for the Magic Keyboard. I don't know that I want to argue about which is better. I think both are pretty good. The Magic Keyboard is metal and it's built like a tank. You could probably use it as a defensive weapon if needed. The book cover doesn't feel as sturdy. I mean, it is made of plastic, but it gets the job done.
Hey, and something quick to note, I'm actually out on a business trip right now and I brought both of the tablets. I think I just don't like the new Magic Keyboard. And I know everybody's been talking about how good of a design it is, but let's be real. This thing is heavy. Like I'm super happy that it's made of metal. Listen. It's made of metal. It has great keys, but like it doubles the weight of the iPad. I don't have a scale with me in my hotel room right now, but it like doubles the weight of the iPad. It just takes this thing from being nice, sleek, powerful, light to just being a big, cumbersome pain in the butt. And I have liked Magic Keyboards in the past, but this one is really starting to get on my nerves. On the other hand, for a freestanding keyboard, the book cover for the Samsung Note, I really like it. I mean, it's not as good of a keyboard in a vacuum, but it's lighter. The keys are fine. It doesn't have a trackpad, but like, so what? If I really need to, I can just tap on the screen. If I want something, if I'm going to use a tablet, I want it to be nice, lightweight, not like, it's so heavy. Why's it gotta be so heavy?
Also, you have to buy the Apple Pencil on top of the Magic Keyboard, which is another $129 on top of that $300. So just in accessories, we're looking at $429 or half the price of the original tablet just in getting it set up. So price right off the bat, $1,400 for the iPad Pro and $1,059 for the Samsung Tab S9. When we get into the tablets themselves, physically, they're both built pretty darn well. Both basically have the exact same screen dimensions in mind, and as screen is most of what a tablet is, that's a pretty good place to start. Both have an 11-inch display, Samsung with an 11-inch dynamic AMOLED panel, and the iPad running an 11-inch Ultra Retina XDR display. And I swear, every year, that description gets a little bit longer on the Apple screens. Both displays can go up to 120 Hz refresh rate. Apple's rate their displays at 1000 nits of max brightness in standard dynamic range mode, where Samsung doesn't really list, but I did set them up right next to each other with both at their max brightness, and I can definitively say both hurt to look at when working in my basement office. Team, I'm going to be honest with you, I did not really like that test. The sizing is also, as you can kind of see here, the sizing is very close between the two. The Samsung is slightly taller and thinner, where the iPad is a little shorter and wider. And you're probably not really going to be able to tell the difference between the two unless you put them up right next to each other. For the display, I know Apple gets the reputation of having the best displays ever, and let's be real, the display is gorgeous, but the Samsung, it's no slouch either. As I'm mainly looking at text, watching classes, or taking notes, I don't exactly push these displays to their limits. I think both are great. For the rest of the build quality, I think it's a draw. Both of these are they're just built so darn well. The iPad is crazy thin, and this video and the B-roll you're going to see does not do this justice. You have to hold it in person to be blown away. It's so thin, it's like holding a piece of glass in your hand. But the Tab S9 isn't that much thicker, and I do like the button placement a little bit better on the S9. Neither tablet has a headphone jack, both are rocking USB-C ports, but for the ports, there is a little bit of variation. The Samsung Tab has a USB 3.2 Type-C port, where the iPad has a Thunderbolt USB 4 port. Yes, technically, the Thunderbolt port is better. It transfers faster, charges faster, but if you aren't transferring massive files to or from your tablet, probably won't notice that big of a difference. But once you start using them, how do they feel? Well, like I mentioned in the intro, the iPad Pro is rocking a desktop class M4 processor. It's crazy fast. Things open and close just instantly. You barely have time to realize that you tapped on the screen or pressed the button before it just happens. The Tab has the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, which is a very powerful mobile processor in its own right. It absolutely works just as smooth. Now, we will talk more about the operating systems later, but suffice to say, I've had this tablet running multiple programs, multiple windows, and multiple tabs of web browsers open at once, and the darn thing has never flinched. Don't let that desktop processor talk scare you. Both of these tablets are really fast. But most importantly, they'll both get you wickedly long shelf life thanks to that power and the software updates security patches that you will get because of it. And why, yes, that is the most important part of all this power. Thank you for reminding me. Me? Wink. All right, there's no way to dance around it. Let's get into the messy business of the operating systems. The iPad Pro, as of the recording of this video, has iPad OS 17, and the Galaxy Tab S9 has One UI 6.1 and Android 14, which is already an upgrade on the Android 13 that it shipped with. Let me segment this before I get into the spicy takes. As tablets in tablet mode go, personally, I don't see a difference in operation between the two devices. And this is not going to be turned into an Android versus iPad OS video. If you're using a tablet and just tapping around on the screen, both will work roughly the same way.
I want to show you another major difference between these two, especially for somebody trying to work from this on the road. Here, hold on, check this out. So this is my favorite note-taking app. It's called GoodNotes. No, not sponsored. And what's funny is the point I was trying to make about this is app developers don't do as well with Android as they do with Apple. And the funny thing is, without even trying, I can't even get into GoodNotes right now as I'm trying to show you the difference for no reason. It just doesn't want to work. Whereas over here on Apple, it works great. But the main difference, even let's say this was working, over here, the most important part for me in this whole thing is this little bar right here called Search. You can actually search your handwritten notes, which is incredible. So, hey, I write something down as a list that I have to do. I can search, it can look through my awful handwriting, and then I can just tap on it so I can take my notes really well. Over here, in the times that it does work, it doesn't have the search. So it's just a worse version of the same app.
Now, okay, talking spiciness, when we move away from the tablets being tablets and step into the lifestyle devices that can do everything, well, here, it's not even close. iPad OS does not do hybrid things very well. It can do them, yes, absolutely. Thanks to Stage Manager and some of the updates that they've made over the past few years, you could use this as more of a computer. It's got okay, if not great, external screen support, and even file transfers and basic usability things are okay. But in my week of constant use of the iPad, it can do everything, but every part of that workflow has friction in it, and sometimes a lot of friction. The iPad Pro is like the Dark Souls of computing. I don't know that I've ever made that comparison. Maybe version 18, which should come out later this year, will revolutionize that, but it's not today, so it doesn't count. Samsung DeX, on the other hand, is amazing. No, it's not as good as macOS or Windows or any other desktop operating system, but it's real close, and it's not that it is as good as a desktop operating system. It's that it has a lot of basic functionality that you would expect from a laptop or home computer, and it works so seamlessly. If I want to use something a little more than a tablet, but like I don't want to bring a laptop with me, Samsung DeX is just so nice for that. Check this out. You swipe down, boom, DeX. Tablet goes into DeX mode. There you go. You've got like a, oh, sorry, you've got my, don't look at my homework. I'm not very good at this whole homework thing yet. So you've got like a tablet that doubles as a Chromebook. I don't exactly want Mac OS on the iPad. I want the Mac equivalent of a Chromebook functionality where it's just easier to use. It doesn't need to be as like functional as a full-on like computer desktop operating system, but it's got to be enough that I don't feel the need to have a tablet and a computer at the same time. If I'm doing power tasks, yeah, obviously I'm gonna have to bring a computer, but just like give me just enough. And Stage Manager and the Files app, I'm sorry, that's not enough. Just like a little Chromebook. Really, look, it's just, So long story long, if you were looking for a regular old tablet, I think it's pretty even across the board for usability. Stick with the ecosystem that you like better. But if you want a modular, broader use case device, well, that's the Tab all day long. Okay, but how about all those accessories you talked about earlier? How are they to use with the different brand of tablet? Well, for the stylus, the Apple Pencil Pro is shaped like a regular pencil and holds in the hand just like one. It has a squeeze function that you can customize or that certain apps will understand as you wanting to change pen or stylus options. It's built really well, and it certainly looks the part, but personally, again, yes, this is a YouTube video, this is all subjective. I don't really like it all that much. When I write in my normal notebooks, I use one of these government pens by Skillcraft. Not the fanciest pens in the world, but you spend 21 years in government service and you get used to what you have. And that means I personally favor smaller, more maneuverable pens, which the Apple Pencil is not. Plus, I don't like how slick it glides across the screen. It feels like you are sliding slippery over an ice skating rink. Yes, you can, and I did put a matte screen protector on it to give a little resistance, but even then, it's not my preferred way to go. The Samsung S Pen, on the other hand, is so much closer to that Skillcraft pen, and I love it. It perfectly fits in my hand. It's super maneuverable, and the way the tip is designed, it feels so much better to write even without a matte screen protector. I like that there's also a physical button on it instead of a squeeze. It might not be as customizable as the Apple Pencil Pro because you can use the Apple Shortcuts app, but if I'm taking notes, I vastly prefer the S Pen. Also, I like that on the Samsung Book keyboard case. Hold on, how are we gonna do this? Okay. Also, I like that on the Samsung Book keyboard case, there's a place to store it like inside of the case itself. Whereas on the Apple branded case, you just have to set it on top and just hope that it doesn't fall off in my bag. It falls off in my bag quite often, actually. I wish Apple would find another place to store this pen. In an ecosystem vacuum though, I think the iPad does tablet stuff better. It's lightning fast, has a screen that can be a tablet-sized flashlight. It's so thin, it borders on absurd. But the Samsung tablet is almost as good as a tablet, and it's far better in any kind of hybrid computing environment. Even without DeX, it handles external accessories and attachments so much better. It's just very versatile. All the way through to the recommendation. Buy the one that matches the phone/computer/ecosystem you already have. It's not that big of a difference that you'd notice. Personally, I like the Galaxy Tab S9 better. It's literally my favorite tablet ever made. And click here if you want to see my also not rosy opinions about the 13-inch iPad Pro. Click, 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 click. That's hard to do one-handed. Thanks for watching.